He told Kobe Bryant to try the starter shoes, but Michael Jordan was standing right there. The gym door opened without ceremony. Kobe Bryant walked in carrying a black bag that looked like it could belong to a college student on his way to practice. No entourage, no publicist, no hype. Just a kid, 18 years old, with the kind of quiet in his eyes that either meant he had nothing inside him or so much inside him that it had learned to stay still. The veterans in the gym looked up the way dogs look up when something moves outside the window. Automatic, dismissive, then back to work. Nobody went back to work that fast after Bruce Lee walked into Iron Temple, but this wasn't Los Angeles, and this wasn't 1967. This was Nike's private training facility in Beaverton, Oregon, August of 1996, 3 months after the Charlotte Hornets had selected Kobe Bryant 17th in the draft and traded him to the Lakers the same night for Vlade Divac. Kobe was technically an NBA player now, but technically was doing a lot of work in that sentence. He hadn't played a regular season game yet. He had never proven anything at the professional level, not in a game that counted, not against men who had been doing this since before he was building Lego sets. He was the youngest player ever drafted from high school directly into the league, and in the world of professional basketball, that was not a compliment yet. That was a hypothesis waiting to be disproven. The facility was everything that advertising and ambition could build. Courts with floors so polished they caught the light like mirrors, equipment that cost more than most people's cars, walls lined with photographs of athletes who had stopped being human beings and become something closer to mythology. The air smelled of rubber and effort, and the specific kind of focus that only exists in places where people have decided to make themselves into something they weren't born as. Outside, the Oregon summer was warm and gray the way Oregon summers are, that particular Pacific Northwest quality of light that feels like it's apologizing for not being California. Inside, under the controlled lighting designed specifically to minimize eye fatigue during long sessions, nobody was apologizing for anything. Derek Holloway owned that court the way certain men own rooms. 3-time All-Star, 12 seasons in the league, a man built like an architectural decision, 6'6" and 230 pounds arranged in a way that communicated loudly and without ambiguity that this body had been constructed for a specific purpose and was very good at that purpose. He had a mid-range jumper that coaches showed on film as an example of technical perfection, footwork that his trainer had spent 8 years building into muscle memory, and the particular kind of confidence that comes not from arrogance, but from having been tested consistently and having consistently passed. He knew exactly what he was. More importantly, he knew exactly what everyone else in any gym was, usually within about 30 seconds of watching them move. He watched Kobe walk across the floor, and he had his answer in 20. Kid moves well, he thought. But kid moves like a kid moves well. There's a difference between athletic and prepared, between having gifts and knowing how to use them against men who have also had gifts and have spent a decade learning to weaponize theirs. He let Kobe get to half court before he said anything. "You Kobe Bryant?" he asked. His voice had that quality that 12 seasons builds into a man, a weight behind every syllable that wasn't aggression, but was something related to it. Authority of resume. "Yes," Kobe said. He stopped, but not in the way people stop when they're uncertain. He stopped like he'd decided to stop. "You got invited here to train with the Nike guys during the off-season program." It wasn't a question. "Yes." Derek nodded slowly, and the nod said several things simultaneously. It said, "I understand the logistics." It said, "I recognize someone put you here." It also said, underneath those two things, in a layer that was polite enough to not announce itself directly, "The logistics are not my concern, and whoever put you here will have to answer for that." "Look," Derek said, and his tone shifted into something almost paternal, which was somehow more condescending than aggression would have been. "I got nothing against you personally. I saw your high school tape. You got tools. You're quick, your handle's tight, you got an IQ above average for your age." He paused. "Your age. That's the thing. We're running 5-on-5 in about 20 minutes with guys who have a combined 40-50 years of pro experience between them. You'd get eaten alive and you'd pick up bad habits trying to survive. There's a half court down the side corridor, some guys your level working on fundamentals. That's probably where your time is best spent right now. Nothing wrong with building the foundation first." He said it the way a decent person says something that dismisses you completely, kindly, reasonably, with your best interests framed as the primary concern. It was almost worse that way. Kobe looked at him for a moment. Not a long moment, just enough to make clear that the words had been heard, assessed, and filed in a place that was not the accept and comply drawer. "I understand," Kobe said. Then he didn't move. Derek raised an eyebrow. "The side corridor is—" "I heard you." Still not moving. "I'd rather run with you." There was a brief silence, the kind that exists when something violates an established social contract. "I just explained why that's not—" "You explained what you think," Kobe said, and his voice was completely level, like a table that refuses to tilt no matter what you put on it. "I'd like to show you something different." There was a man sitting in a chair at the far edge of the court that nobody had mentioned. He had been there when Derek arrived, had been there when the other players filtered in, had been there so quietly and so completely that the room had simply organized itself around his presence, the way a room always did without anyone consciously deciding to make it happen. He was wearing plain black shorts and a white t-shirt. He had a towel across his knees and a bottle of water in his hand, and he hadn't moved in 20 minutes. He was watching everything with the particular quality of attention that separates people who watch basketball from people who read it. Michael Jordan was 41 days away from announcing his second return from retirement. He was in Beaverton because Nike was Nike and Jordan was Jordan, and those two facts created obligations that didn't require further explanation. He had come in planning to get a workout in, had felt his left knee tracking wrong somewhere on the second court, and had decided to sit and watch instead. He was very good at watching. One of the things that most people who had never played with Jordan at that level didn't understand was that his ability to watch was almost as dangerous as his ability to play. He could sit still with complete attention in a way that most athletes couldn't manage. And while he sat and watched, he was filing things, categorizing things, building a model in his mind that he would test later in ways that always surprised people because they had forgotten he'd been paying attention. He had been watching Kobe Bryant since Kobe walked through the door. Derek looked over at his training partners, and the look that passed between them was legible. "You want to deal with this?" One of them shrugged, another almost smiled. This was going to be a short conversation of the physical variety. "All right," Derek said, and he pulled off his warm-up jacket and tossed it toward the sideline. "You want to learn something? We'll make this educational." He picked up a ball from the rack, bounced it twice. "1-on-1, you score on me, you run with us. I stop you twice in a row, you go find that side corridor." Kobe set his bag against the wall. He didn't stretch. He didn't bounce on his heels or shake out his arms. He just turned and faced the court like the court was a question he had already answered. They went to the top of the key. Derek had the ball. The other players had drifted to the sidelines with the casual interest of men who already know how this ends, but are willing to watch it end for entertainment. Derek made his first move, a jab step right, a crossover left, a pull-up at the elbow. It was a beautiful shot, the kind of shot that goes in so consistently you stop thinking of it as a shot and start thinking of it as a scheduled event. Kobe was in his face, not in the frantic, overextended way of someone desperate to contest a shot, but in the precise, measured way of someone who has done the math. The shot went in anyway because Derek Holloway's shot went in. But something happened in Kobe's eyes that was hard to describe. Like a meter reading, like something being cataloged. They went again. This time Kobe gave him a different look, sagging slightly, inviting the pull-up. Derek took it. Kobe had already begun closing the distance before Derek's feet left the ground, so precisely timed that the contest was there, real, meaningful, and the ball kissed the back of the rim and rolled away. Nobody said anything. Derek retrieved the ball and looked at Kobe differently than he had looked at him before. Not differently enough yet, but differently. The third time Derek made his move, Kobe said something. He said it quietly, without any particular emphasis, as if he were commenting on the weather. "Right shoulder drops before you go left," Kobe said. Derek stopped. He was mid-move and he actually stopped, which almost never happens, because stopping mid-move is something your body simply refuses to do when it is trained enough. But the words had short-circuited something. "What?" "Your right shoulder drops 2 degrees before you initiate the crossover left. You've been doing it since your second year in the league. It's in your game film from Cincinnati, 1988. You corrected it for about a season and a half, and then it came back. It's in film from every year after that. I've seen it 900 times. The gym was quieter than it had been. "You've watched my game film," Derek said. It came out somewhere between a question and an attempt to locate footing he had lost. "Every game you've played in the last 4 years where the footage was available," Kobe said. "Every game Jordan played from 1984 to now. Every game Magic Johnson played in the finals. Every game Larry Bird played where the camera angle was good enough to read footwork. Not highlights. Full games." He paused. "I've seen your right shoulder drop 647 times." The silence that followed was the kind that happens when a room receives information it doesn't know how to file. Derek bounced the ball once. He was thinking. You could see him thinking, which was itself unusual because Derek Holloway was the kind of player who had long since moved past thinking and into knowing. His game lived in his body, not in his mind. Somebody just told him they could read his body from the outside in a way he couldn't read it from the inside. "Okay," he said, and the word was carrying more weight than 2 letters should be able to carry. "Okay, so you've watched a lot of film. Smart." He squared up again. "But film is film. This is the floor." "I know," Kobe said. "That's why I'm here." What happened next would be described differently by the 4 players watching from the sideline, but they would all agree on the shape of it. They ran another 6 or 7 possessions. Derek went hard, all the way, no longer the generous veteran humoring a rookie, now a professional with his pride in the equation. He used his size, his strength, his superior professional experience. He scored. Players like Derek Holloway score. But each time he scored, Kobe had done something with the information. Each time Derek made a move, the contest was tighter than it had been before. And twice, in the middle of possessions that Derek had felt completely in control of, Kobe said something before Derek knew he was going to do it. He called the move out loud while Derek was still deciding to make it. "Up fake, right?" Kobe said, and Derek had to abort the shot he was already loading into his body because the words had made his own intention strange and visible to him. "How?" Derek said, and it wasn't even a complete sentence, not really a question, more like a person reaching for a structure to hold a thought that didn't have one yet. "Because you shift your weight to the right before you go up," Kobe said. "And you only do that when you're planning to pump fake, because your body has learned to load differently for the actual shot. It's a separation of about 1/3 of a second. On the floor, it's invisible. On film at 60% speed, at the right angle, it's as loud as a shout." Derek Holloway stood in the middle of the court holding a basketball and looking at an 18-year-old the way you look at something that has just rearranged your understanding of a room you thought you knew every inch of. "Nobody's ever told me that," he said. "Nobody's watched the film at that speed, at that angle, looking for that specific thing," Kobe said. The man in the chair at the edge of the court had not moved, but something had changed about the way he was sitting. There's a quality of attention that shifts from observation to recognition, and Jordan recognized it in himself without naming it. He was no longer watching a young player impress a veteran. He was watching something else. He wasn't sure yet what to call it, but he had been in enough rooms with enough people to know that the thing he was watching was not common. He had encountered it in himself every day for 20 years, and almost never encountered it anywhere else. He stood up. The movement was quiet. It shouldn't have been notable, but the room noticed it anyway, because the room always noticed when Jordan moved in it, no matter what he was doing. 3 of the 4 players on the sideline registered it immediately. Derek looked over. Even Kobe, who had his back mostly to the far edge of the court, seemed to feel the shift in the room's center of gravity and turned. Jordan walked across the floor with that particular unhurried certainty that very few people ever achieve. The walk of someone who has spent so long knowing exactly what they are that the question has stopped being interesting. He stopped a few feet from where Kobe and Derek were standing. He looked at Kobe. Not the way the room had looked at Kobe when he'd walked in, not the automatic assessment of someone unfamiliar. He looked at him the way one reader looks at another reader upon discovering they have read the same obscure, difficult book. "How long have you been watching film like that?" Jordan asked. His voice in a quiet room was different from his voice in interviews. Lower, more direct, stripped of everything that existed for external consumption. Kobe didn't blink. "Since I was 11, he said. "My father was in the league. I had access to tape. I started with him and went backward and then forward and then sideways." "What were you looking for? In the beginning?" "I didn't know. I just watched until patterns showed up. After a while I understood that the patterns were the game, not the scores, not the highlights. The patterns underneath." He paused, and there was something in that pause that was not uncertainty, it was just measurement, the same quality that had been in his eyes since he'd walked through the door. A player's body tells the truth before they decide to do something. The decision comes after the body. If you can read the body, you're always ahead of the decision. Jordan was quiet for a moment. On the sideline, 3 professional basketball players were collectively holding their breath in a way they would later deny because it would have seemed implausible. "And my body," Jordan said. "You've watched my film. More than anyone else's." "What does my body tell you?" Kobe looked at him. It was a long look, and it was doing real work. "That you've been in so much control for so long that you've started to play the predictability of your own excellence against people. You let them believe they can read you because you know they can't read the part that comes next. You're 3 moves ahead of your own game." The silence after that statement had a different texture than the silences that had come before it. Jordan's expression didn't change. That was the thing. It didn't change. And the fact that it didn't change was itself information, because Jordan's face had a relationship with challenge, and it was a relationship of welcome. This face, meeting this information, staying this still, meant the information had landed somewhere real. "That's right," Jordan said. He didn't say it like he was confirming a correct answer on a test. He said it the way you say something when someone has articulated a truth you've lived inside for years and never heard spoken aloud. "I know," Kobe said. Derek Holloway had drifted quietly to the sideline. He wasn't sure when that had happened. The court had reorganized itself around a different geometry, and he had followed it instinctively, the way a room's furniture seems to rearrange itself around wherever the light is strongest. "Why are you here?" Jordan asked. "Not this facility, this league. Why do you want this?" Kobe's answer came without hesitation, but it wasn't a rehearsed answer. It was the kind of answer that sounds immediate because it's been the truest thing in a person's life for so long, it doesn't require retrieval anymore. "Because what you built," Kobe said, "is the closest thing to perfect anyone has made of this game. And perfect is a ceiling other people accept. I don't accept ceilings." Something moved across Jordan's face. Not quite a smile. Something in the neighborhood of recognition. "You're not trying to be me," Jordan said. It wasn't an accusation. "No," Kobe said. "I'm trying to find out what's on the other side of you." Jordan picked up the ball from where Derek had left it on the floor. He held it for a moment the way someone holds a thought they haven't quite finished yet. "The film will take you to the door," Jordan said quietly. "But the door is only open from one side." "I know which side," Kobe said. Jordan looked at him for one more long moment. Then he walked back to the center of the court, bounced the ball once, and held it out. Not as an invitation the way you invite someone who is lesser than you to participate. As a beginning. They ran for 45 minutes. Derek Holloway watched from the sideline for the first 10 minutes and then picked up a ball himself and went to a side basket and started working on his footwork, alone, at half speed, paying attention to his right shoulder in a way he had never paid attention to it before. He did this for 20 minutes and then stopped and stood very still in the middle of his side of the floor. Later, when someone asked him about that August afternoon, he would say only that he had gone to Beaverton to get a workout in and had come back understanding something about his own game that he had been moving inside for 12 years without seeing. He never did tell them what it was. Some knowledge is too intimate for the words available. On the main court, the ball moved between 2 people who understood basketball not as a sport, but as a language, and what they were doing was something closer to translation than competition. Outside, the Oregon afternoon had gone gray and quiet the way it does. Inside, nobody thought about what was outside.